Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the Railway. Super excited today because I'm going to be trying my first ever Bachmann, Thomas & Friends characters in Engage. Bachmann's 00 or HO scale Thomas & Friends models have been around for years now, and we've all seen them, and even I've reviewed most of them on this channel before. But something I've never actually seen is Bachmann's N-scale Thomas & Friends range, which was launched back in 2021, I believe, and I've seen photos of them, I've thought they looked good, but I've never actually seen them with my eyes before, which is crazy. So today, I'm going to change that, and I'm going to be reviewing this. The chap who started it all, Thomas himself. And right away, right off the bat, looking through the front of this box, this is super impressive because he looks just like the HO or 00 Thomas, but obviously much smaller. Quite impressive that they've been able to make something this small that still looks exactly like a Thomas. But buying this has been really confusing for me. I don't know about anybody else, but the prices make no sense at all. So the HO or 00 Thomas from Bachmann has a full price of £79.95, and at the retailers you can pick it up for £67.95, which actually doesn't seem too bad these days. But if you want the Engage version, which is much smaller, you've got to pay loads more than that to get it. So the RRP for this is £110.75, and at Rails they cost £94.13, so that's about 30% more. And I can't understand this. Why is this so much more expensive than the HO or 00 ones? I wonder if it's because this is newer. You know, maybe they're trying to get their money back on creating the toolings for this. Maybe the quality of this is much better than the 00 or HO Thomas. I think the quality of those is pretty poor, they're quite plasticky. Maybe this is a lot better. Well, I certainly hope it is for that amount of money. Anyway, I didn't buy this from Rails or direct from Bachmann or anything like that. I actually picked this up from Tootley Thomas, who had an even better price for this of £85. So a huge shout out to Tootley Thomas for what I consider is a reasonable price for this. But I've also got a couple of other things to show you today, and here they are. We've got Annie and Clarabel as well. Also in Engage, looking absolutely tiny as well, just like Thomas. And these were cheapest at Rails this time. They were £21.88 each. Yes, that's still more than the 00 scale one, but I suppose that is a bit more reasonable. And if you are interested in this stuff, I've got affiliate links down in the description for you. But today we're going to see what these are like. We're going to see why they are so expensive. Are they really good quality? Are they worth buying for your little ones? We will find out. But for now, let's get started and take my first ever look. Alright, so I guess we'll start with Thomas himself to begin with, and I believe Bachmann makes this model available in the UK, but I don't think this is that. I'm pretty sure this is the American release, and for some reason it was cheaper for me to buy this from a company who has to pay to import them from America than it was to buy the British release of this. So that just goes to show how crazily messed up Bachmann's prices are. So yeah, if you actually want the Engage Thomas stuff, it's cheaper at the moment to go to Tootley Thomas than it is to buy them over here in the UK. So until Bachmann fixes that and fixes their prices, that's what I would recommend doing if you want these in the UK. But anyway, as you can see, this is Thomas. Let me briefly show you the end of the box. So this is Thomas the Tank Engine, of course, and it's item number 58791. So that's what you want to Google if you want to find this. For now though, let's just check the rest of the box. Yeah, there's nothing really else to see here, so let me figure out how this opens, and I will take my first ever look. Of course, the surprise has been spoilt a little bit because the window shows the model, so it's not like I'm revealing him for the first time, but I've never held one of these, never done anything like that. Yeah, it's a real first for me. Ooh, what's this here then? A full colour combined Bachmann and Williams catalogue, over 300 pages, digest size. Digest size. Well, thank you for that, Bachmann. It was quite nice to get a free snack there, but we should really get on with the review. So first, we've got crammed in here, tightly rolled up, instructions. So let me see if I can decompress these and we'll take a look. Okay, so some generic instructions. It mentions a smoke unit. Are there versions of this that have smoke? That's crazy. Braking period, that's fairly typical. You need to let this run before you hook it up to rolling stock. Troubleshooting, maintenance, that's all generic, isn't it? And then here we have the model itself. And yeah, we can see how this thing works. So he's got what looks like a fairly large coreless motor, even with a flywheel. That's pretty awesome. And then we've got proper pickups, wiper pickups here, instead of picking up through the bearings. So it seems to work pretty similar to the 00 scale version of this. But I do notice that it doesn't appear to have a moving eye mechanism, which I actually think is best. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the moving eyes anymore. Anyway, let's have a look then at Thomas himself. Been looking forward to this. There he is, absolutely amazing. I mean, the blue colour, they've just nailed, haven't they? It looks awesome. Right, let's lift him up then. Carefully does it. All right. And here he is. And yeah, the weight is fantastic. I think the body is plastic, which is a surprise because Rheneas that I reviewed had a basically all metal body. This one almost certainly seems to be plastic, which is maybe a bit disappointing given how ludicrously expensive this was. But the weight is good, so there must be a pretty chunky chassis inside. I'm actually pretty impressed that he weighs this much. And yeah, he looks fantastic. I mean, look at that face. Let me bring in the 00 scale face. You can't tell me that the 00 scale face looks better than this N scale one. Yeah, it doesn't have the moving eyes, but I think that just makes him look so much better. This is how the Thomas I knew as a kid looked. Yeah, really, really good face. So that is great. We'll take a much closer look at Thomas in just a second. For now though, let's pull in Annie and Clarabel. We'll start with Annie to start with. There we go. And let me show you the end of the box of this. So this is Annie Coach. It's item number 76094, and that's all she wrote. So let's pull this out. Doesn't look like this comes with any accessories or instructions or anything, or does it? No, don't think so. Okay, here we go. Annie ahoy. And here she is. And yeah, this is pretty light as well, a bit plasticky looking, but in terms of the way it looks, I mean, yeah, as always, Bachmann have really nailed this, haven't they? The 00 ones, they look just the job, and so does this, really. I think for 20 quid, this is a lot better value, really, than the Locos. Yeah, not bad at all to get any sort of coach for 20 quid these days. And I will show you more on this in just a second. Right. Quick look at Clarabel then. I don't think this will be much different from Annie, so we will just whisk this out and have a quick look. But yeah, looking good, as you can see. The end of the box shows us that this is Clarabel Coach. It's item number 76095. So let's whip this out. Can I cheat, I wonder, and just pull it out without trying to get the base out? Oh, I can. How naughty. Okay. Clarabel. There she is. Yep, looking the same, except, of course, for the name. I like the way the nose pokes out there. It's pretty cool. So there we go. Let me hold the two together. There we go. Annie and Clarabel, everybody. Looking really, really good. And if I can juggle all of these, there's Thomas as well. So, you know, we're looking at least £135 of model here. So it is pricey, it is expensive, but I have to say, these do look good so far. So a little bit of background on Thomas, and then we'll take a much closer look at these. Thomas was built in 1915 as an LBSC E2 tank engine and was designed to be a station pilot at the big station on Sodor. However, Thomas's dream was to work on his very own branch line, and after lots of hard work he was given two coaches, Annie and Clarabel, who we've just seen, and he was sent to work on the Farquhar branch line. Thomas is quite accident prone, and his naivety and forgetfulness often lands him in a bit of trouble, but he usually manages to pull through with the help of other engines, of course. Thomas is now well over 100 years old, and despite having now been squashed into 2 dimensions, he does continue to work on Sodor to this day. And of course we can all remember how he looked when he was at his best. through models like this. So there he is, up close and personal for you, Bachmann's N-Gauge Thomas. And as much as I think the price of this is just ridiculous, you know, almost £100 for this when the 00 scale version is so much cheaper, that just seems crazy to me. But I have to say the quality of this model is absolutely amazing. He has been built right. I mean, Rheneas from last time, he looked absolutely awful compared to this Thomas, who is just totally spotless. So his body is plastic, which is a shame in one way, but equally he does weigh 30 grams, which does make him my lightest N-Gauge loco, but he's also my smallest by a really long way. In fact, if I take Thomas out and put the pannier tank in, this pannier tank, as you can see, is much larger, and yet it only weighs about 4 grams more than Thomas. So I think given how small he is and given that he's got a plastic body, I still think his weight is pretty impressive for his size, and he'll be more than heavy enough to move Annie and Clarabel, which is the main thing, and I'm struggling to get him back on. There we go. Let's look at the paint job then, which is absolutely fantastic. Even though this is tiny, he's not been simplified, so he's got the nice shiny finish to him, really like the look of that. Perfect banding, which has been so precisely applied. Again, the paint job on Rheneas was really messy. This is perfect. Lining on the side of his tanks, his #1 looks amazing. We've got the lining around the windows, the grill effect on the back, and round the very back of his coal bunker, we've got the lamp, which has been picked out. That's not a separate part, it's moulded, but it has been painted. His running plate is red on the side, as it should be, and of course that kind of Thomas grey colour on the top. All of this is perfectly sharp and fantastic. And here's a close look at his face, which I've got to say is the best Thomas face I've ever seen. Better than Hornby's, better than Bachmann's in 00. Yeah, it's just spot on. Why has it taken them this long to perfect the Thomas face? But yeah, I can see people really liking that face, because even I can tell how good that looks. Let's take a look at some of the details then. So the wheels are not my favourite aspect of this model. We've got just disc wheels and the spokes are not real, they're just kind of moulded on. That's not really how Thomas looks in my experience. And also his coupling rods are very thick and chunky. And we've seen from the pannier tank that Bachmann can do better, finer rods than this. So I assume this has been done just to make him a bit more robust and reliable. Don't really have much of a problem with that. He does have separately fitted buffers, and these are very tiny buffers. Lamp brackets are separately fitted as well, and the one on the left-hand side here actually has a lamp on it as well, which is cool. His whistles in front of his cab are just moulded on. That is a difference between this and the 00 version. The 00 one has separately fitted whistles. This one's got them moulded, so they don't look as good, but again, this makes him a bit more robust. He doesn't have a real cab space. Yeah, the windows are just painted black, and that's because his motor is inside there, I believe. And that's the same as the 00 version as well, so again, I don't think it makes too much difference. And then he's got his coal bunker. The coal looks very nice and realistic, and as you can see, he's full up, which is good. And around the back, we've got another detailed buffer beam. So all in all, you know, it's a very simple model. I can't understand why it should cost as much as it does and why it should be more than the 00 version, but I have to admit it's a brilliant likeness of Thomas. I think the best I've ever seen. And I certainly can't fault the quality because he has been put together well. So to an extent, I suppose you do get what you pay for here. Here's a look at Annie, and these coaches are very light. They weigh in at 12.7 grams each, so very light, but hopefully that means Thomas and others will be able to haul them very easily. They've got the spot-on colour, I think, on the body. That looks great. The Annie printing is just perfect as well, and also the door handles and handrails around the doors. These are part of the moulding, but they have been picked out. She's also got real windows, as you can see, and these have a kind of frosted effect on them, and I think that's probably to hide the fact that there's nothing inside this. So unfortunately, yeah, no interior detail. Lots of detail on the roof. As you can see, all of the roof furniture is moulded on there, which looks good. And we've got some pretty detailed axle boxes, and the wheels look good as well, although again, these are just the disc wheels. Here's what the buffer beam looks like. Very simple. Got some buffers, and that's pretty much it. The buffers do look good though. But here is Annie's face, which looks perfect. Yeah, just like the show, at least from the model or the CGI series. Yeah, that looks perfect. And here we have Clarabel's face, which is the same. Usually the models are depicted with different faces. This, I can't tell a difference between those, so I guess they've cheaped out a little bit. But of course Clarabel does have her name on the side of the coach. So all of this looks great. Again, the quality of the coaches is fantastic, so I think really these are well worth the money. All very, very nicely built. But how does this run? Does Thomas work okay? What's the quality of his mechanism like? I would hope very, very good, but we're about to find out. So let's get him down onto the track and let's give him his first test. So there he is, Thomas, looking absolutely amazing in N-Gauge, down on the layout, and I've already filmed his first run, and I'll show you how all that went in just a second. After that, I took him apart, which was a bit scary because of how small he is, but I did do it to take a look at the mechanism, and honestly, the mechanism is just great. Miles better than the 00 scale mechanism. How did they manage that? This is like a fraction of the size, and yet the quality of this mechanism is miles ahead of the 00 or HO Thomas. So looking underneath, you can see we've got screws holding him together, not clips, so straight away that's a really good sign. There are 3 screws that hold the base keeper plate on, and carefully taking those out allows you to remove the base. And look at this, we've got proper separate bearings on his axles. Fantastic quality. Very few of the 00 characters have this feature, and yet tiny little N-Gauge Thomas does. And look at this as well, single axle drive at the front, and we've got a brass gear here. Again, just added little extras to make this quality. Really like the fact that they've actually spent some money on this mechanism. And if I pull one of the wheels out, you can see we've got wiper pickups attached to the chassis here. So actually, if you were to pull the wheel set out, you would be able to quite easily clean the pickups or readjust the pickups if you need to. So that's good. So the body is held on with 4 screws, and unfortunately these are self-tapping screws, so you have to be quite careful putting these in and taking them out, mainly putting them in because you don't want to crack the threads on the body. But with the body off, and that's not that easy to do because it's a very tight fit, you can see the chassis here, which is totally filling the body. All heavy metal, no space at all in the body, which unfortunately means there is no DCC socket here. There is this circuit board here, but that's not a DCC socket, although I suppose you could quite easily solder in a decoder instead of this board if you wanted to. No socket though. Anyway, if I take out the screw that holds that board, and then underneath the board there is another screw which holds the motor bracket in place, you can reveal the very high quality coreless motor, pretty large as well given his tiny size. And as you can see, we've also got a flywheel worked into this. A pretty large flywheel as well for the size of the model. Again, I don't believe any of the 00 models have flywheels, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't think Thomas does. Absolutely amazing for N scale. And then we've got the back-to-back gauging, which is spot on at 7.4mm back-to-back, and that was consistent across all the axles. What a high quality mechanism. This is such a small loco. I mean, look at that. It's the size of half of my finger, and yet he's got a better quality mechanism than almost all of the 00 scale Thomas models. To my mind, this actually makes this worth a bit more money than the 001 for sure. And you know, this doesn't have the working eye mechanism, and I don't miss it at all. The eye mechanism's pretty entertaining, I suppose, but it's not that realistic. I don't remember Thomas's eyes creepily scanning left and right as he runs constantly, so I'm not really bothered about losing that. And of course, the extra stress the eye mechanism puts on the rest of the mechanism just isn't worth it in my mind. So I like this so much better, and of course the face looks a lot better as well without that. So that's the mechanism, really, really good, top quality. With that, let me jump back in time and show you how he ran. Alright, pretty big moment then. This will be my first time driving one of these, and also my first time seeing one of these work. So let's choose a direction and let's see if he actually runs. Here we go, a little bit of power. Wow. You know, from the first femtosecond of him running, you can tell what a lovely runner this is. And yep, that right there is the dead spot on the points. Did he stop on there? No, he didn't. Wow. That's smooth. That is beautifully smooth. Smoother and quieter, I would say, than the 00 version. So yeah, already we are seeing, I don't know, we're seeing a bit more value for money, I think, in the performance here. He's performing the way you'd expect a pretty expensive Thomas model to run. And yeah, that is just great. Okay, let's see what kind of speed range he's got then. I'll run by at 50% for you. Ready? There we go, set him to 50. Yeah, so he can go pretty fast. What's his top speed like? Oh, insanely fast. But, you know, you kind of want that. I think there's fun factor in being able to go crazy fast, so he can do that. But can he also go crazy slow? I mean, he needs running in, and I will run him in before I sort of judge him, but let's have a look straight out of the box. Turning up very, very slowly. Let's see if he can crawl. Oh, wow. Gosh. Outstanding. Now, in one of my recent N-Gage reviews, somebody told me you're being too hard on N-Gage locos for not being able to crawl and for constantly cutting out all the time. That's just something we have to live with down at N-Scale, and we don't mind. And I thought, you know, that sounds like rubbish to me. And I think Thomas here, of all people, proves that that is total rubbish. Fantastic performance here. And he has now cut out, thus embarrassing me. No, there we go. To say he's not yet running, this is an absolutely astonishing performance. And at everything but a crawl, he is going over those points without stopping. I wonder how slow we can get him to go over those without him stopping. Look at that, wow. Even slower? Surely not. Insane, even slower? Yeah, he's going to stop on there, surely. Alright, maybe not. How is this the best N-Gage runner I've ever seen? How is this better than sort of £150 N-Gage models? Wow. Genuinely, I think this is the best N-Gage runner I've ever seen. How can that be, Bachmann? What's going on? So much better than that pannier tank as well. Wow. So much fun to run already. So enjoyable. Okay, well, with that, let's run him in. Here we go, 50%. And yeah, he just sounds healthy. Sounds like a quality mechanism. It does seem like that motor is very high quality. And the way he performs is just fantastic. Like I say, I think this is better than the 00 Thomas that I've got from Bachmann. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, it's worth every penny in terms of performance. I think it's pretty basic for what it costs, but this performance is mind-blowing to the point where I would say, well, I paid £85 or so, well worth it. Best N-Gage runner I've seen. Astonishing. Even better than that Kato or Kato loco I looked at. Just brilliant. So I'll let him run in, and then of course after that I'll do his performance tests again, and I'll couple him up to Annie and Clarabel and see how he gets on with those. But yeah, so far, performance-wise, so impressed and happy with this. Okay, folks, that is running in complete. And yeah, he's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The most reliable N-Gage runner, I'm saying this again, that I've ever seen. So let's see if his speed's changed at all now that he's warmed up properly. 50%. No, nice and constant, same as before, I think. Pretty sensibly geared as well. Can he still crawl? Let's try that. Here we go. Turning up. I'm doing it slow. My goodness. My goodness me. Oh, he's cut out. That was insane though, to be fair. Okay, try again, away from the rail joins. It's just insane. We can do a gentle acceleration. Yeah, I would never have thought an N-Gage model could run as well as this. And it's that quality mechanism, isn't it? That quality mechanism has really made the difference here. Okay, so I've set up Annie and Clarabel, and again, these are super free rolling, so I don't think he's going to have any trouble hauling them. But let's see, let's back him up and see how the coupling works. I'll try this on the curve. Okay, I always get Annie and Clarabel wrong. I never remember how they're supposed to go, so probably wrong again, and I do apologise for that. And also, I am trying to couple this on a curve, which is a famously bad idea. But did it work? Oh, I did. Yep, second time lucky. All right, we have Annie and Clarabel. There we go. And yeah, this all just works brilliantly. So this cost me a lot of money, and I'm not entirely convinced that Thomas in particular was worth quite that. But at the same time, you can't complain about the way he runs. This is the best quality mechanism I've ever seen in a Thomas model, I think. And that performance is just stunning. So yeah, it's expensive, but you do get a great model for all that money. And I can imagine this lasting a very long time. You know, my Bachmann 00 Thomas models, bad motors, dodgy mechanisms, I've had a lot of those fail. I can't see this one failing anytime soon because his mechanism is built to last this time, which is great. Yeah, and he looks wonderful, absolutely fantastic. Obviously, Bachmann have nailed the way Thomas looks. Annie and Clarabel look spot on as well. Absolutely love it. I think this is the most I've ever enjoyed a Bachmann Thomas model because it looks good, as all the Bachmann Thomas models do, but he's good on the inside too, which is something that the 00 models really kind of failed on. So this is just awesome. Okay, let's do a points test. Okay, let's open up these points then. There we go. Fairly tight points. Wow. Absolutely perfect. Not even a stutter from Thomas, and Annie and Clarabel stayed on the track perfectly. In reverse. Oh, how good. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Right, let's go silly speed and just really challenge it. Okay, perfect. In reverse, this is the tricky one. Oh, just got him. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, possibly. Should we give him one more try? Because I think he was very, very close to doing that. Try again. Fast. Fine forwards, in reverse. Okay. So you can't drive him like a maniac over points, but obviously that's to be expected. At sensible speeds though, and even at higher speeds than you should be driving over points, he's fine. Let's try sort of quite fast but not ridiculous. Yeah, so it is fine, just not at top speed. So again, I think that's pretty good. The way this all stays on the track, particularly the coaches as well, is just great. Really good. Right, let's have some ratings then. So the level of detail I'm going to give 4-star. Yeah, they've obviously nailed the profile of Thomas. This looks just like him, and the face in particular is just brilliant. This is the best I've ever seen a Thomas face done, I think. Also, we've got top-notch decoration, brilliant finish, and all put together very nicely as well. It doesn't get 5-star because the wheels don't look quite right. I don't really like the disc type wheels, and also the whistles are just moulded into the cab and kind of painted. They don't look quite as good. I understand why these things have been done, the chunky rods as well, but they do mean that Thomas doesn't look 100% accurate, although he is very, very close. Performance though, I cannot fault it. Absolutely amazing performance. I think he's cut out once, and that was when I was trying to make him crawl over points. Everything apart from that has been perfect. Great performance with the coaches, couplings work fine, no stalling, no derailing, and the only issue I've had is trying to run him backwards over points at full speed. Well, I don't think that's much of an issue to criticise. Pulling power I can't measure unfortunately, but at 30 grams I would say he's pretty heavy for how small he is, so he's not going to struggle to haul a kind of medium-sized train, and Annie and Clarabel are no problem whatsoever. The mechanism for me is a 4-star. It's a really good quality mechanism. So we've got all-wheel wiper pickups, nice and simple, proper bearings on the driving axles, even a proper brass driving gear, which I wasn't expecting. We've got a quality coreless motor that runs brilliantly, and even a flywheel. We just don't have a DCC socket though, and some of the 00 models now do have that, and I have seen N-gauge models that also have DCC sockets as well. So pity he wasn't DCC ready, but I suppose a socket in here would have taken up space, which would have reduced his weight. So it's not a massive complaint, but of course a lot of people do like to run digital these days. The quality for me is 4-star, brilliantly built this, put together perfectly, I didn't see any wonky parts, and the decoration is absolutely spot on this time. He is a bit plasticky in the body though, and I do think perhaps a die-cast body here would have brought the weight up so that a DCC socket could have been put inside without affecting the weight. I think that's probably what I would have preferred, but the build quality is certainly not a problem here. Very, very impressive. Value for money then. Now I thought going into this that £110.75 RRP for Thomas was a total rip-off. And I won't lie, it is a bit of a rip-off because he is tiny, he is quite simple in his detail. I don't think the value's brilliant at that price, but at the retailers, which is kind of £85 to £95, honestly, at least this is a quality model. It is very expensive, and yeah, that's a lot of pocket money to save, I do understand that. And the 00 models are much more affordable, that's true. But for something a little bit more premium, for something a bit better quality, certainly that runs better and will last longer, I think, £85 for this really doesn't seem too bad, given how much I've enjoyed it. That's my opinion. You might say it's a rip-off, and I get it, it is expensive, but at least it's a quality model. So overall then, that is 7.93 out of 10, or a grade of C. I think it's really the price that lets this down, and in fact if it got 5-star on price, this would be an A grade model, which is pretty good for a Thomas character, I think. So into the N-Gage logbook this goes, and it is 3rd place, just above Dapple's Class 142 and below the Sonic model J50. Now bear in mind, these other models are supposed to be serious models. They're not sort of kids TV characters, these are supposed to be serious models. So the fact that Thomas here has ranked pretty well among them is really, really impressive. Yeah, really, really love these models. Well, there you have it then. That will just about do it for my first ever review of some of Bachmann's N-Gage Thomas characters. And how awesome was that? Really, really enjoyed this. The best Thomas characters I think I've ever seen. And they're in N-Gage, who would have thought that? But it also makes me wonder what the other characters are like, so if there's any others you'd like to see me review, please do comment down below and let me know what those are, and I will definitely look into that. Also, if you're interested in any of this stuff, maybe for Christmas, something like that, I do have affiliate links down in the description, so check those out if you'd like, and also if you'd like to see some of the rest of the range, that will be there as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Do comment down below and let me know what you thought, and I'll catch you on the next one. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.